I've been building my Evo 9 MR to compete in GridLife's Time Attack series for the past 2 years, but this season we're leaving no stone unturned in our pursuit of speed, horsepower, handling, weight reduction. When we're done with her, Lana the Lancer is going to be the whole package, all sponsored by Advance Auto Parts.
This is my Evo 9 and it is the best car I've ever owned. For about 8 years now I've been street driving it, and I also use it to compete in GridLife's Street Class Time Attack series. And over the next 4 or 5 weeks we're going to be doing a bunch of mods to this car that are going to make it absolutely unbeatable on the track this year. But first, today we're here at the racetrack to benchmark the car as it currently sits, so that we can see exactly how much faster all the mods that we do to it will make the car in the end. This is a 4G63 that powers the car. Obviously, this one is high compression with a stock turbo. I've done extensive oiling mods to this engine to try and make sure that I don't blow up my second 4G63 on track. It was tuned on E85 last year and made 397 horsepower on a Mustang dyno. The car is running a half cage, a Brid bucket seat, and 5-point harnesses because this thing is fast enough that I think I need a little bit of extra safety. The rear diff was built by TRE for a little more on-throttle lockup, and it's also running a delightful Tomei Extreme titanium exhaust. So today we are at Virginia International Raceway. This is my home track, and fast cars around here will do give or take 2 minutes. My personal best is a 2-minute 8-second lap, and today I think I should be able to improve on that pretty significantly, but we gotta find out.
Out there.
So you guys may have seen the car's behaving a little bit foolishly, snapping a lot, so we're gonna do the rear bar, soften that up just a bit. It is at full stiff right now. I'll see if I can just do one good lap, but this will be it for the day. So if I don't get something good here, then you know, we won't really have a good benchmark, unfortunately. I haven't looked at my lap time yet from that last session. This was the last session we're doing today. So I got an okay lap, so hopefully it's something good. I'm gonna guess 205, something in the 205s. 206.5, so not that good. But 2 seconds better than my PB, so I'll take it. It wasn't a great lap. We have a 206.5 to beat. Let's see if making a bunch of modifications to the car does that. All right guys, we have just benchmarked the car and now we are back in the Gears and Gasoline garage. We got the Evo up on the lift. My buddy Mark is here and we are going to immediately pull off the transfer case and the rear differential off of the Evo, drive up to Michigan and go to TRE, who has done my transmission build for the car last year. They're going to do a bunch of drivetrain work for me to make the car even faster. Mark is going to help me. Is that a M&M milkshake?
Yes.
Can Can I have just a little?
No!
All right, so we are getting started taking everything out, and it is right about 8 o'clock. Yeah, this morning, some people stole my impact out of my truck along with some other tools, which is the worst thing, probably the worst thing that's actually ever happened to me, which tells you, gives you some insight into my life. But I'm holding the brake pedal with my foot so that Mark can break those axle nuts loose, hopefully. Is it working?
Oh, I haven't tried yet.
Oh.
Pulling a lot of diffs lately, huh? I feel like I'm always under here, pulling a rear diff. Pulling this out is a lot easier than the RX-7, I'm gonna tell you. Wow.
Easy day.
I mean, if that's not one of the easiest jobs.
20 minutes? It's only what, 11:45?
The Evo has a helical style front LSD, which doesn't necessarily work as well as it could, and what that results in a lot of the time is waiting for the front end of the car when you're going through a corner, a lot of understeer. And it needs a lot of patience, but the car could go faster if it turned in better. That's where an upgraded front LSD comes in. This is a Cusco clutch type front LSD for the Evo. This is going to go in the transfer case, and I imagine that this is going to have a pretty big effect on the front end bite on the Evo, which is going to be really big when it comes to getting the car to turn in better. So last night we pulled off the T case as well as the rear diff. Now we are going to load everything onto the trailer. We're going to push the car onto the trailer, and we are going to head out west. I'm back here with Aaron. He, you might remember, recently just built my RX-7 rear differential, which I exploded. He also rebuilt the Evo's 6-speed, which I exploded. And now he gets to work on some stuff that I haven't exploded yet. The T-case is gonna get a new front diff, and the rear differential is gonna get a rebuild because it hasn't been for like 4.5 years. So what are you expecting to see once we get in here?
First thing, usually gear wear on the ring and pinion. We look at the front differential for cracking. Housings can get like tweaked and everything. Tell there that this car's lived a fairly easy life because if it went to the drag strip, you launch it, this ring gear will actually shift on this housing. And then it will be forcing against the threads really hard. And you can like mess up a whole bolt if you just kept on going unless you didn't go all the way around like I just did. But in this case, literally buzzed them right off, which is kind of rare to see it go that easy. So it's not really a strong design for what you're doing with the car's power level and everything now, so.
Yeah. Is the front differential cracking pretty common?
Yes, especially with the OEM limited slip. They have like a heat treat line you can kind of even see, and they just always crack right there at the windows. So we mainly work on Mitsubishi Eclipses and a lot of Evos. Right now we have a ton of Evo front differentials, and these are very common for cracking like this. And I have a couple of them just sitting here that are just cracked and they're bad. Like there's nothing you can really do because this is what it's going to turn into. This one's been magnafluxed already, and you can actually see the crack right there. Crack will keep growing and then it'll explode out. And then usually when this happens, it'll push the T-case right off the transmission. So now on yours, we need to magnetize it, which what we're doing right now. I have a solution here that, as it comes up, kind of hard to see, but it kind of is brown. The stuff that's in the water there actually looks brown to the naked eye, but under UV it turns green. And a crack will create a pull. And you got lucky. This is why you road course cars don't drag race them. And now we also gonna do the same thing to the ring gear here. Since we are going to plan on reusing this, we don't want to put something that's cracked back in there. And this looks all fine.
I'm John from TRE. We're going to talk about differentials and how to make your Evo not understeer on exit. This is a standard, what was known as a open differential. Okay, this thing can freely do its job of differentiating speed from one axle to the other. Okay, and what I mean freely, it's that there's no limited slip here to try to tie these two together. We'll say this is the inside tire and the car is going to be traveling around the turn. This tire would spin up, adding RPM relative to the speed that the differential's turning. This guy would actually be rotating forward. Notice the other gear is going slower, it's backing up. We see it as backing up, but remember, if we put this thing into motion, we're going to have the inside tire spinning up while the other tire is slowing down. And what's the difference? Exactly that. I guess that's where the name the differential comes from, is because whatever is being added to this side here in regards to wheel spin is being subtracted from this other tire. This is a factory helical limited slip from a Mitsubishi Evo, and the way that the helical works is that power is being transmitted into this outer housing. This outer housing is forcing the sun gear in the center to turn. I'm going to be the housing turning this, and this gear is going to be stationary, and you can see these gears want to force themselves out. Okay, how they're going outward from the center. They're forcing themselves outward at the housing. Okay, that's where the friction is being generated, is between the thrust surface, or this is ultimately a thrust surface, or the tip of the gear teeth up against that outer housing. You can almost think of it as kind of like when you hit the brakes on a car, you're rubbing that brake pad against the rotor very hard. The thrust force is these planets being pushed outward against the housing. You're going to be limited again with friction in the high power cars, even with a bunch of aero on the car. A high power Evo coming out of a turn, that front inside tire is so light, you would see that front inside tire drastically take off with speed compared to the rest of them. That is power that is being bled off to a spinning tire that's not accelerating the car, and that's making your lap time slower. Another differential, and this is my favorite type of design. This design would be a floating cross shaft type design, much like the rear differential in the Evo. These have been around for a long time. We're also known as a Salisbury limited slip. Why Salisbury? I don't know. Why a Salisbury steak? If you watch the RX-7 video, this is the similar type of differential design. Power's coming out of that center differential. It's going to go through this torque tube. It's going to go to this front differential. This front differential has got a side sheave. Okay, this side sheave keys in to this guy. So now this is all turning, okay? Power's then going to go on this cross shaft, okay? And this cross shaft, we'll take the gears out of here just to get rid of some of the distraction. From there, power is going to be transmitted through the cross shaft. This is a 4-post cross shaft. This thing here has a difference in ramp angles on this thing. This is a one-way where the back of this guy is completely flat, okay? This is up against this flat. This would be a one-way, okay? This thing is only going to be able to ramp in this direction right here. And you can see the way that this guy rides up this ramp. This piece actually is ramping and pushing back, squeezing on the friction discs, okay? If no limited slip action is happening, then these guys here are just riding along all together at the same speed. There's no problem. But the more that you kick this thing's ass, the more that you force this thing to take the power, the more that this guy forces the ramps to squish up against the friction discs and lock up the differential. By its design, it can apply more friction, more squish on these friction discs in relation to how much torque is being transmitted through this cross shaft. This differential has a tremendous amount of surface area as opposed to planetary helical type differential. If you total up all the surface of what the side gears are making contact in this differential, there's substantial more friction surface area on these friction discs, okay? What this is going to allow you to do is going to be able to put a much more clamp force on here, generate higher friction coefficients with less wear. This is definitely a better way to go. Why did the car not come with this differential? Cost. There's a lot of manufacturing that goes on into this thing as opposed to making planetary helical. I do like the Cusco friction disc. I do like this differential overall. It's well engineered. They do cost more, but you really get what you pay for. If you're honestly looking at a way to reduce lap times, you definitely want this style differential, a floating cross shaft, torque reactionary differential.
As good as the components are, they are still pretty small, so all the help they can get is what we're trying to do. And right now we're shop peening it, which is like putting compressive strength into the part. Like a lot of jet engines and stuff like that have like everything shop peen inside of them. A lot of OEM rods are shop peen from factory too. So right now I'm actually corner rounding the outside edge, trying to get, like, we don't want it to make contact out there at all. So right here we are detailing the gears. Right now we're trying to get rid of the nasty sharp edge that's down at the radius of the root on the edges here. You basically want to get rid of any sharp corners. So I'm trying to get rid of all the stress risers and everything like that out there, the witness marks, of possible areas where cracks can initiate and then start tearing. Basically you're just trying to add as much surface area and whatnot too to get the most chance for oil to stay onto the part.
One way. We don't want any influence from the limited slip differential during corner entry when you're downshifting, because that will want to jerk the steering wheel to try to center. The car's going to want to try to pull itself back straight. Isn't it a beaut?
So right now I'm trying to get backlash about 5, maybe 6 is the highest. If you go too tight, you'll burn it up because I want enough oil in between the gear teeth. If you go too loose, it can make the car whine really bad. And also be detrimental to the gear tooth.
This rear differential has been gone through at some point prior by us. It's got our billet side cover. This guy is going to scoop oil up and throw it up towards the front pinion. It's going to get thrown up, goes through this passageway here and gets up to the front pinion bearing. Okay, something that I always see with the Evos, especially in road racing applications, is the front pinion bearing seeing quite a bit of heat. And we know when that happens because the bearing will actually get hot enough that it'll actually start spinning on the pinion shaft. We don't want to see that happen. We should really, on this car here, put an oil sight on it. I just simply buy the factory OEM cover and I CNC new thread location, and where the old bolt was at, I press in an oil sight glass.
Everything's ready to go. You're ready to head off to Minnesota Yeah, Minnesota. Tell Ronnie and Paul we said hi.
Do you want to help me load that up, or am I on my own?
You're on your own, bud.
Yeah, watch out for the RTV.
Next time on Gears and Gasoline, it's time to tear into the Civic by removing all of its interior and drivetrain, so we can take up the hollow shell to art some and start the process of welding in a proper cage.